he and Michael Flynn discussed, and Michael Flynn very publicly talked about, maybe we should use troops and go in and seize the ballot boxes and count the votes. You don't think Donald Trump heard that and thought maybe that's a good idea? And here we are. He's sending troops onto the streets of American cities.
You guys know as well as I do that we on the left are looking for people that are going to stand up and do something. We are looking for people that are going to fight back against the authoritarian regime. And part of that fight will always be going into the lion's den and winning over hearts and minds. And JB Pritzker recently had the opportunity to do that over at Fox News. And I just gotta say, guys, this is a maddening interview to watch, because basically what has happened over at Fox News is that they have created an alternate reality for their viewers to live in, and it is from that frame of reference that they ask their silly questions. So let's go ahead and see how JB Pritzker was able to handle himself. And this first thing that they're talking about is how Illinois has now established a commission to track the unlawful actions of these federal agent thugs. If you guys do appreciate my work and want to support the show, please do remember to subscribe.
Well, you have this effort to track ICE, the Illinois Accountability Commission, announced today to create this public record of federal law enforcement agents, determines how to collect testimony, hold hearings, interview individuals, record what could be used to pursue justice and accountability on them, right?
Yes.
So what do you say to the people who look at that and say, you know, ICE is taking bad guys off the streets of Chicago?
Okay, guys, let's just pause it right there for just 1 second, because this question is absurd. So basically, you've got Illinois that has established a commission to hold these federal agent thugs accountable if they break the law, and Bret Baier is coming in and saying, but don't you know, these guys are taking bad guys off the streets, guys. What the fuck are you talking about? Just because you are taking bad guys off the streets doesn't give you the permission to break the laws in the process. Let's go ahead and see how JB Pritzker responds.
Listen, it's great. Go get Tren de Aragua. That's not what happened. Remember, they attacked a building with 130 people in it, and they got a couple of gang members. That's what you ought to do, by the way. Go after them, not the 130 people. Instead, they took everybody out of the building. They zip-tied the kids. They took some of the seniors and put them into U-Hauls for hours. And many of them U.S. citizens, legally in this country, others. And instead, they detained, I mean, literally dozens and dozens of people for hours. That is not the way you do law enforcement.
Yeah, and he's exactly right. That is not the way that you are supposed to do law enforcement. You're not supposed to go into an apartment building and bust 130 doors down just because you think there might be some undocumented immigrants in there. That is not what we do in this country. You're not allowed to go around Chicago and just start racially profiling people. You're not allowed to go around the country and start snatching people off the streets without any due process at all. This should be pretty basic stuff for us Americans, right? But here you've got Bret Baier thinking like JB Pritzker is doing something wrong because we want to hold these assholes accountable if they break the law. It is absolutely insane to me. Now let's go ahead and move on to the next part, because here is Bret Baier and other Republicans, obviously, who are just clutching their pearls because of JB Pritzker's rhetoric.
You were in an interview and you called ICE agents and looking like they're acting like Nazis after the Holocaust. Take a listen.
What I'm saying is that this is how authoritarian regimes do it. They create these kind of fake ideas that there's an enemy out there and it could be sitting next to you at one of these tables.
Did anybody hear a reference to the Nazis? Anybody hear reference to Germany? What the fuck is Bret Baier talking about here? How are you going to completely misrepresent what JB Pritzker said and then play the clip where you prove yourself wrong? Let's just continue.
This kind of language, fascism, Nazism, it's permission. We went to war to destroy the Nazis, to overcome fascism. It's permission. It's a slippery slope to violence, and it's unacceptable. And it's pervasive on the left. We saw that pre-Charlie Kirk. We saw it post-Charlie Kirk's terrible assassination, and it needs to stop, and the Democrats are guilty of not standing up against it.
If you guys don't want to be called fascists, stop doing fascist shit. You cannot get mad at us for calling out your fascistic tactics. That is not how this works. You can't just go around the country acting like a bunch of fascists, acting like a bunch of authoritarians, and then when we call you out on your bullshit, you clutch your pearls and cry, pretending like it is our fault that there is escalated tensions in this country. Give me a fucking break.
How do you respond to Senator McCormick?
What I can tell you is that Alberto Pinochet was an authoritarian. There are lots of authoritarians that I could point to. It happens that I know best because I helped build a Holocaust museum sitting next to Holocaust survivors about what the Nazis did in those early years.
No, I understand that.
I'm not
but
talking about the Holocaust. I'm talking about
agents.
what they were doing, taking away people's rights, arresting people, asking them for papers. Early on in an authoritarian regime, wherever it is in the world throughout history, this is what happens. It's the beginning of something very bad for our country, especially a constitutional republic.
To his point, in this environment, you're demonizing ICE agents. If some ICE agent gets killed, and we just saw an assassination attempt down in Dallas, isn't that not something that we should be really talking about like that?
The thing that we're demonizing is when ICE agents aren't following protocols. They aren't acting like law enforcement should act. They're instead literally racially profiling. We've seen it. All you have to do is go online and look at some of the videos. Just to be clear, because I think many people that are listening maybe haven't seen that before.
You don't think you're painting with a broad brush of all the ICE agents that are doing their job?
No, we're saying that if you're an ICE agent and you do these things, we think you ought to be held accountable. And yet no one in Washington, no one above them, no supervisor, no inspector general is holding anybody accountable. There literally haven't been any suspensions or firings for the terrible things that they've done, literally grabbing people, tackling them when they're U.S. citizens and have done zero wrong.
Yeah, JB Pritzker is absolutely right here. There has been no accountability for the lawlessness that we are seeing from these federal agencies. We've got people in Federal Plaza in New York being tackled to the ground because they were crying in front of an ICE agent. And that agent got suspended temporarily, and then this administration looked at it and said, no, those are the kind of people we want on our side. That is what this administration is doing. They are going around the country and racially profiling people, snatching people off the streets without any due process at all, sending people to countries that they have absolutely no connection to. That is what this administration is doing. And JB Pritzker is absolutely right here to call out that this is a main tenet of fascism, is creating an enemy from within. And so until Bret Baier wants to call out Donald Trump for his insane rhetoric, calling Democrats terrorists and just the worst things that you can think of, I don't want to hear it. Donald Trump has demonized the entire other half of this country, which is one of the main things that fascist movements do. So I will say again, if you don't want to be called a fascist, stop doing fascist shit. Now, the next thing that they discuss is, of course, the murder rates down in Chicago, which has obviously been a huge talking point for those on Fox News.
Why does Chicago have the highest murder rate of all the big cities?
Well, we are not in the top 30 in terms of our murder rate. Indeed,
well,
our murder rate it has been cut in half over the last 4 years, and every year it's gone down by double digits. And if you look at all of the violent crime over the last 4 years,
here's a map.
They've all gone down.
U.S. cities, 17.47 per 100,000 population.
I just want to pause it here for just 1 second because this is an intentional framing of this question, because instead of looking at all metropolitan areas and seeing that Chicago actually ranks like 17th or 18th, he's looking at murder rates in most populous U.S. cities, so he could make this argument more clearly. He doesn't want to acknowledge that Chicago has actually been doing work on the ground to bring these crime rates down. And so he's able to frame this question like Chicago is the murder capital of this country, when that couldn't be further from the truth.
Chicago is number one over Philadelphia, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Phoenix, Los Angeles, New York, and San Diego.
What I'm explaining to you
Now,
is
you're
when
talking
you want
about
to fight
violent
crime. Look, you can pull statistics up.
No,
I can
these are
too.
murders.
I'm explaining to you that our murder rate has been cut in half. And very importantly, Brett, and you got to hear this, very importantly, we've been doing the things that are necessary to bring crime down, right? We've invested in community violence interruption. We've invested in police. I've added more state police than any governor in quite a long time. It's very important that we do both of those things and more to invest in our communities so that we bring crime down. We're doing that. You know who's doing the opposite? Donald Trump.
Yeah, and he's exactly right here. Donald Trump is not interested in solving the crime problem in Chicago. He's interested in these shows of force, sending the military in, sending the National Guard in, sending these federal agent thugs in to crack skulls all across the country. Now, of course, violence is a problem in Chicago. 17.47 per 100,000 is way, way too high. But they are discounting the fact that Chicago is actually doing things on the ground to bring these crime rates down. They have cut their murder rate in half, which is a huge, huge deal. I think they are also looking at a 30-year low when it comes to violent crime, just like Washington, D.C. So they are obviously doing things that are working. Yes, crime is still a problem. Yes, murder rates are still a problem. But Bret Baier gets to frame this in a disingenuous way to make Chicago out to be the murder capital of the United States. These people are dishonest, and they just have nothing to say when it comes to this administration cutting police budgets all across the country. That is what this administration has done. It wasn't the Democrats defunding the police. Donald Trump has defunded the police with all of these federal cuts. Now, the last thing I want to discuss here is this both sidesism when it comes to stealing elections. Let's go ahead and see what he has to say.
So you're saying that the president of the United States is going to try to steal an election? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, this is a guy who tried to steal the election back in 2020, and he would do it again. Yeah, I think he's proven that he's willing to do that.
There are many Democrats who pointed to Donald Trump before the 24 election, saying he was challenging the integrity of the election by saying almost exactly what you're saying about him now. Why do you think he's going to steal the election?
What I'm telling you is you can just look back in his own history, that back to 2020, after the election, when he claimed fraud, he claimed it had been stolen from him. And he and Michael Flynn discussed, and Michael Flynn very publicly talked about, maybe we should use troops and go in and seize the ballot boxes and count the votes. You don't think Donald Trump heard that and thought maybe that's a good idea? And here we are. He's sending troops onto the streets of American cities, into blue states in blue cities, and he's calling it about crime, but that's not at all what it's about.
And you don't think by saying this now that you are somehow challenging the integrity of the next election?
No, he is challenging the integrity of the next election, but yes, he is challenging the integrity of the next election by sending troops into our cities. That's what I believe this is about. It isn't about fighting crime. He said he's going after the worst of the worst. That is not what they're doing. They are literally going after black and brown people because of the color of their skin.
You know what, guys? Bret Baier can fuck right off. This both sides bullshit is what's killing our country. Because basically what he is saying is that because JB Pritzker is calling out these very real attempts to rig the 2026 midterms in advance, well, that somehow he should be put in the same category as Donald Trump before the 2020 election. That is absolutely insane. Donald Trump, in the months leading up to the election, was trying to claim that Democrats were going to steal the election without providing a shred of evidence that that was the case. Democrats, on the other hand, all we have to look at is what Donald Trump and the Republicans are doing down in Texas, where they just picked up 5 extra seats in the middle of the decade. We can look at what they are doing in North Carolina, where they just picked up another seat in the middle of the decade. We can look at what they are doing in Indiana, where J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are trying to pressure officials to rewrite their congressional maps in the middle of the decade. Donald Trump has already shown us who he is. He has shown us that he is willing to try to subvert democracy so he can stay in power. I mean, he literally riled up a mob of his supporters and sent them to the Capitol so they could stop the certification of a free and fair election. And now he is deploying the military and National Guard to blue cities and blue states. And you think that he's not going to try to use them to keep himself in power? You think he is not understanding that the American people are sick of his bullshit and are likely to hold him accountable in the 2026 midterms? You think that he is just going to go willingly into the night? Bret Baier can fuck right off. And JB Pritzker is absolutely right here to be calling out Donald Trump and the Republicans for literally trying to steal the election in advance. So like I said, guys, JB Pritzker did a pretty good job on this interview. It is so frustrating watching these Fox News hosts work inside this MAGA reality bubble and then frame questions from that perspective. They are no longer living in reality. And then when you've got a dose of it come on, like JB Pritzker, they just don't know how to act. Bret Baier should be absolutely ashamed of himself, asking stupid questions on a stupid network. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that pushes back against this MAGA media machine that just launders all of this fascist nonsense for the Trump administration day in and day out. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. If you guys want to go a step above and beyond that, you can actually help me produce these videos by becoming a member right here on YouTube for as little as $3 a month. Or you can head over to politiscape.substack.com where you can have my content delivered directly to your inbox every single day without the doom scrolling, without the weird algorithm stuff. And the cool part about Substack is I own the data over there. So until the next one, guys, everybody keep your chin up, be safe out there, and I will see you on the next one.